kicked off in vegan land this week, didn't it? With that study about fragile vegan bone. It was actually called the Vegetarian and Vegan Diet and Risks of Total and Site-Specific Fractures, the Epic Oxford Study. In the hands of the Daily Mail, this became the vegan knocking, veganism can lead to more broken bones, followed up the next day by a breathless and faux concern. Are vegans really any healthier than their carnivore counterparts? We'll be talking about three aspects of this today: the health, accuracy, potential vested funding interests, and toxic media. So this is Pamela from Animal Justice Emergency, and we bring you news, opinion, and try and bring some clarity into the vegan space, centering animals for total liberation. Study, first of all, the health content, the accuracy. Just to be clear right from the outset that veganism is an ethical position based on respect for all animals, respecting their rights. I read the study, and as a non-health professional, I found it really opaque, so I was relying on actual medical doctors to clarify this. And they basically seem to be saying, yes, this is a respected institution. They know about it's a long-term study. So it's a respected entity. But the thing is, there were a number of very unclear aspects to it. Because it's a long-term study, the people at the beginning of the study had said they were vegan. I think this is like 20 years ago or so. And now, with the follow-up, they were not checked to see if they were still vegans. That's one thing. There's concerns about what about vitamin D? Was that a key factor? Vitamin K2 was mentioned, various aspects of sort of bone density. The medical experts I was looking at were all saying, well, it's not clear and we need a bit more research to get some proper clarity. I would say the main thing that is not clear is if those people were vegans still. And if they were, well, maybe they weren't aware of the health aspects, but they were still ethical vegans, so good for them. Nobody knows where the fractures came from. Maybe they were more active, that's the other thing. Because vegans tend to be of a lower body weight and therefore running around more fitter. So question marks over what exactly the study was measuring, and there needs to be more research. And apparently two of the researchers were actually vegan. The study leader actually said a well-balanced plant-based diet can result in improved nutrient level and have been linked to lower risks of diseases, including heart disease and diabetes, and a lot more actually, but they don't say what else is going on. The second aspect that I found quite interesting was the funding. Now, under the section of funding on the study, it said the work is supported by the UK Medical Research Council and Wellcome Trust, Our Planet, Our Health, brackets, Livestock, Environment and People, LEAP. Of course, there's a disclaimer at the end of that saying, that these funders had no role in the design, anything else, or influence anything else in the study. Okay, so who is this LEAP that was part funding this study? Livestock, Environment and People. The LEAP programme aims to understand the health, environmental, social and economic effects of meat and dairy production and consumption, to provide evidence and tools for decision makers to promote healthy and sustainable diets. Why do they need to find out more when there's like mountain loads of research that's already been done for decades? The website is basically full of pictures of animal body parts, prepared as quote unquote food, and pictures of basically cows in lovely green fields with blue skies. And I'm like, what am I looking at? I don't understand it. And then it's blaring on about meat and dairy products are important sources of protein and micronutrients which are basically fed to the animals in their feed, protein which we get too much of anyway in the standard Western diet, such as iron and calcium. Well, forget about kale then, forget about dark green leafy vegetables. But are also a major source of saturated fatty acid. So on the one hand, they're trying to promote sustainable diets, and actually they say promote plant-based diets. But on the other hand, the website looks like something that you'd see on the NFU. Fields, happy cows and cow body parts. The website also says things like vegans are low on B12, there's relatively little evidence of long-term health of vegans, Are vegan diets okay, and is too much meat bad? Well, long-term studies like the Adventist studies, like the China studies, well, there's tons of studies. Why haven't they found that out? I mean, these are academics. Well, their mates are academics in Oxford. If a bog standard person like myself can sort of like click onto the laptop and find long-term studies about veganism, why can't they? Their partners include Sainsbury's. Wellcome Foundation, who are another part of this funding entity, have got funds of 28 billion pounds. So they've got, shed loads of money to invest in whatever this is. Wellcome. Their portfolio, their investments include the likes of Nestlé, Unilever, Shell, PepsiCo, Novartis. It's just a bit confusing, isn't it? That these, dependent for their 28 billion pounds of funding and no influence on the studies. We can draw our own conclusions. And this leads us on to the third aspect, which was the toxic media framing. This was kind of like an object lesson of how it all happens. So basically you've got a study that is very unclear, that the experts are saying we need more research. It was part of another study into something else, and the findings were just sort of found kind of by accident. We don't even know if people were vegans or not. And yet it was picked up, as I'm sure we've all seen, and splattered all across the media as like, oh, poor vegans, you're buggered, basically. Or, as the Daily Mail had it, veganism can lead to more broken bones. Are vegans really any healthier than their carnivore counterparts? Most of the other media sources would have a similarly unnuanced and sort of anti-vegan slant on their pieces. One of the most interesting things I found about this was that the Daily Mail, the only time that animals, non-human beings, are mentioned is in the Daily Mail when they talk about carnivores. And this is so interesting because they're then framing human animals who are actually omnivores as carnivores, which is inaccurate. It's just basically inaccurate. And that makes you question the whole accuracy of the entire piece. The interesting thing about the Mail piece is there's been, again, no attempt to do any kind of, nuanced or additional research. So what are these people being paid for? Well, they're being paid to toe the dominant cultural line, the dominant anti-life, anti-animal, anti-vegan stance, the human supremacist stance. That's what they're being paid to do. So shouldn't it have some sort of disclaimer? Caution, reading this piece may be bad for your mental health if you're a vegan, and physical health if you're not a vegan. Another interesting thing about the Daily Mail is that they have got an editor who's an old Etonian, like Boris. How cosy is that? So maybe you want to put some comments on these pieces. You can write to the letters section, which is letters@dailymail.co.uk. Or the health editor, so-called, is a lady called Justine Hancock, and she's at health_Justine on Twitter. So maybe have a few chats with her. What are the conclusions from all of this? I think the main thing is the sludge-like lack of clarity about what's going on, both with the research, these major institutions, the actual substance of the research. The funding of the research seems extremely odd. Saying one thing, doing something else, I don't get that at all. And then the media bias, which we do expect, but we can still challenge. We've got this toxic media bias against all life, against other animals, and against our own survival. Human supremacy and speciesism, and it's never called out. This is what I think is an important job for us as vegans, that we need to start calling it out, not in the vegan bubble, but actually in the mainstream bubble. Let me know in the comments what kind of actions you think that we should be taking on this kind of media escapade to help stop the war on other animals. If you like this, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for your time.